Models. Growing up, we're told that it's okay to look different. But rather than just making peace with not fitting society's ideal form of beauty, today's guests took their differences in their stride.
Now, all three of our guests have realized that it was, in fact, their differences that made them beautiful and have all made successful careers as models. And today, they join us to share their stories of how they got to where they are, how they learned to love just who they are. Welcome to the Loft.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, you know, sitting here looking at you, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind for me is not that you're different, it's just that you're beautiful.
Oh,
and for me, beauty is an atmosphere. It's an experience. You look at something and it hits you, and it's just a truth about something. But obviously, I mean, I modeled years ago, and I remember modeling was such an insecure space for me because I found that when you spend that much time focusing on how you look like, you actually eventually do become insecure. So you're actually having to marry that and the fact that people do think you're different. And how's that journey been for each of you?
Well, I think it's been like really interesting to try and kind of reconstitute people's perceptions of like my community. So being transgender, it's a lot of trying to get people to understand that we're just like everyone else. How we got to being ourselves is completely different, but everyone's on a continuous journey and ours is as valid.
Changing narratives also, just to, people have this preconceived idea that this is how beauty is supposed to be, but I feel like, I mean, our roles in the industry is to change that, how people look at that, you know, people come in different shapes and sizes, and I feel like if we just, I mean, the industry is already playing a good role in that, and people are starting to see differently and expressing beauty in a very unique manner.
It was quite challenging coming from a beauty pageant background with Miss South Africa to then go back to my natural shape, which isn't that small and skinny as I was from Miss South Africa. So it was a difficult transition to go back into my normal natural size 14 body. And you have a lot of insecurities in the acceptance journey, but with time, it gets a lot better.
You know, I feel that the modelling industry and the advertising industry, I suppose, back then when I, you know, started off modelling and acting, was exclusive. You had to, you weren't allowed to look like anyone else. You had to be that exclusive person that was completely just, you know, perfect. And nowadays, it's it's inclusive now. That I think everybody that has their unique look and has a little quirk about them, like the ginger girl with a gap in her teeth. I mean, that's sexy. That's now intriguing and interesting. But I mean, how do we keep that, you know, staying? You know, how do we keep it relevant all the time?
Make it the status quo.
Exactly, as opposed to just like tokenism, what we were discussing earlier.
I mean, like you said, with the advertising and industry, I noticed that, you know, there's, I'm going to say regarding albinism, so I do a lot of albinism awareness projects, and I just realized that I would normally pop up when it's just, you know, when they want to use a sporadic look, and I wouldn't get casted if, you know, they want to cast for a black guy for an alcohol beverage or whatever. I'll have to stick to the sporadic look, and
or avant-garde,
or avant-garde, or like having cable ties around my neck or whatever. But you know, it's but I feel like just for like I started when I was 15, and since I've you know, grown older, I've realized how the industry has become more accepting. I'm able to do really mainstream jobs that is more considered commercial.
You can just sell jeans.
I do a lot of, I shouldn't mention any companies, but, you know, it's a lot of, it's more accepting now, and, I mean, you still have a long way to go, but I feel like, you know, it's really important to highlight that, you know, we all come in different hues, and not only just to say like, oh, because it's he's really pale or whatever, now we need to use him in X, Y, and Z, but also to use that to say that, okay, cool, we all come in different hues, and, you know, representation is really important, and it helps with self-esteem to the masses.
I think that our industry can do a lot better though. So I'm like one of the only trans models working in South Africa at the moment, and I feel like I'm also coming from a position of privilege because I appeal to society's idea of femininity, and for me it's about like breaking gender down completely and like getting people that aren't kind of appealing to someone's idea of what being feminine is or masculine is, and kind of just reconstructing that holistically. It's really exciting though, because I feel like that shift is coming. I just wish it was coming more than from one place.
Yeah.
Sure.
Very true.
Yeah. I have to say, Marcel, like you were in Miss South Africa and you had lost 14 kilograms in like 3 months or something ridiculous to become. And actually scrolling through your Instagram, I find it so refreshing when I see, and I mean, you're by no means a big girl. I mean, you're gorgeous and very sexy. And I just find the minute you do see something a little bit more wholesome and curvier and so beautiful, and people that'll be, I think it just adds more texture. It just makes it so much more real.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also just opens up our perspective. You know, it's like, because beauty or beauty magazines or the media has always narrowed the meaning of beauty. And now when you're constantly being challenged to open up your perspective, you consume product in a very different way. You know?
I've got this, I was at this party and I've got this friend who is unbelievable, and she films herself doing yoga, but like her body can bend and move in the most unbelievable ways. And I said to my one friend, oh, you've got to follow her on Instagram and see what she does. And my one girlfriend said, that is the reason why I'm not on Instagram. Just because this image of what's perfect, but actually the more we see of what's different is what's going to make people more accepting of themselves.
And happier.
It's like a field of sunflowers. I mean, like a field of sunflowers is really cool, but like another field with like dandelions and roses, you know, it's more beautiful. And like
you've got such a beautiful way of speaking, analysing things, putting things in analogies.
As a young girl, I wished I saw more body representation in magazines. Because as a young girl, you look at the models in the magazines dreaming of becoming a model, but you don't see someone your size and you start thinking there's something wrong with your body. And my body is ugly because if this is beauty, why am I not being represented?
Yes, absolutely.
And I mean, it was the same for me. So the reason I decided to like run ahead with activism in modeling is because I didn't have a trans role model to look up to and tell me it was okay to feel those feelings. And like what I do is I hope that like a little kid is flipping through the pages and is able to have that discussion.
Yeah, I love that this is a form of activism. It's not just modeling. That's beautiful. So it's safe to say that years back, a group of 3 models on the couch would have looked very different. But I'm happy to say that changes in visibility are coming, and these 3 make excellent examples of conscientious young people leading the charge, the change in better